Hey, my name is Glenn Young with Miar Adventures, and today I'm talking about food for a high altitude. Right now we're in the hut for Orizaba, otherwise known as Setlapetal, in Mexico. It's the third highest peak in North America. And we've packed for our trip. Unfortunately, we had some nasty weather, so we're postponed a little bit right now, but I'm going to talk a little bit about what we packed and why we packed it. So the first thing to know is once you start getting high for you, and that depends on your own personal genetics. So for me, I can usually go from sea level up to about 13,500 feet without experiencing any signs of AMS or acute mountain sickness or other signs of stress from high altitude. Usually if I go from sea level to 14,000 feet, it's a little bit more stressful for me. So I can go from sea level to about 13.5 and I can pretty much eat normally. But if I'm going to go any higher than that, I'm going to need to change what I'm eating, or I'm going to need to spend more time at that altitude or use another strategy to help me acclimatize. So what food will I eat if I'm above that threshold where I feel comfortable? So first thing is typically at altitude it's cold, and at altitude your body loses moisture very rapidly because of the pressure difference inside your body versus outside your body. So you're losing a lot more to evaporation and through transpiration as you breathe. So having liquid is really important. And having hot liquid is really helpful for maintaining your appetite. And I end up trying to ingest a vast majority, or at least half, of my calories in liquid form, especially if I'm trying to perform at altitude. In other words, if I'm walking uphill at altitude. A lot of times perform at altitude means moving very slowly. So in here I have a thermos. This is a 0.75 liter thermos. And this has been filled with hot tea with lots of sugar. Okay, so that's where I'm getting my calories from. Then in here I have hot chocolate without milk. And notice neither of these have I added any fats, which would be a much more efficient way to gain calories. And the reason for that is because at altitude, with less oxygen available, it's more difficult for you to process fat, and it can cause indigestion and loss of appetite. So we're going for simple sugars here. So just tea with sugar and a simple hot chocolate mix. It's a Mexican hot chocolate mix that is mostly sugar and cacao, and doesn't really have any milk additives. It's actually like one you'd give to kids in the morning as a fortified part of a healthy breakfast. And we also have some granola. I like to eat granola for breakfast. A lot of times I'll add bananas to that, and I find that's pretty easy on my stomach. At this altitude, we're at just over 14,000 feet here, and we've been acclimatizing. So I have Nido, which is a full-fat milk. I would not necessarily want this Nido if I was not acclimatized to this elevation, again, because it's a full-fat product. But I have that with me right now. A quick note, if you are going to eat fats, for reasons that I don't know, vegetable fats do seem to be easier to digest, non-hydrogenated vegetable fats. So if you're going to get peanut butter, try to get a natural peanut butter, and I can oftentimes eat avocados at altitude as well. So you might be able to substitute coconut milk powder for the Nido, but I would still be cautious because there's a lot of saturated fat in that, and that could upset your stomach. Ritz crackers, this is a lot of times what I'll eat. On the go, I will have an entire sleeve of these, and I'll eat nothing but Ritz crackers and drink tea as I'm walking. Okay, it sounds weird for a lunch, and it doesn't sound like it would sustain you very much, but another interesting thing about high altitude is because you have a loss of appetite, you oftentimes don't even feel that hungry, and you might be surprised. If you've trained well and you have good fat metabolism, then you can digest your own body tissue, your own fat at elevation without having to consume food, and therefore use a lot of energy to operate your digestive system. So having a lot of simple carbohydrate foods and not overstuffing yourself is a really good strategy. For sandwiches, this is a whole wheat bread. I would actually prefer a highly processed white bread that you stick in your mouth and basically turns to sugar. Okay, and then on here I have bananas and maple syrup. A lot of times I'll use honey as well. We just happen to have maple syrup available. So again, it's pretty simple carbohydrates. It's something to fill my stomach because also at altitude, especially if you're taking something like Diamox, that acidifies your body chemistry to increase your ventilation and to increase your respiration, and that can cause what I call sour stomach, where if you don't have something for your stomach to chew on, it can lead to indigestion or it can lead to loss of appetite as well. So having some sort of solid foods I like, as long as it's very simple carbs. We also have some quaker, or Quaker, Quaker oats, called quackadder in a lot of Latin American countries. And again, it's got a lot of sugar in it. We have tea with sugar. I like to have tea because tea has caffeine in it. Green tea is great. It's mildly caffeinated. I find coffee can be a little bit strong on my stomach if I'm not fully acclimatized, and a lot of sugar. And caffeine also can really help at altitude because caffeine is a vasoconstrictor. So it makes your blood vessels inside your brain a little smaller and can reduce altitude headaches. Again, this is a little chocolate mix that I've used in my hot water bottles. Again, both of those are hot. Some cookies, and then popcorn is fantastic. You know, I'll buy pre-popped popcorn. It doesn't weigh anything, but it is bulky. But especially a trip like this one where you're staying in a hut for a while, you can bring a ton of popcorn, download movies on your phone, go for a acclimatization hike and come back and just eat simple carbs, eat popcorn like all the way up until you're ready to go to bed, and drink simple carbs in tea. Try to get a lot of calories in before you rest, and I find that's pretty easy. And I'll actually bring popcorn up the mountain with me frequently too, because that I find is one of the few things that I can eat, you know, maybe above 20,000 feet, something like that. So I hope this has been really helpful in terms of packing or food planning for packing for a high elevation mountaineering trip. Typically that would mean that it's going to be well above 12,000 feet. In this case, our peak is about 18,500 feet, just under that. But this would also be a typical spread for the Himalayas, something like that. Awesome. Take care.